Ah, Lisa. Hey, Lisa.
Hey.
Bob Nibby. Wow, Bob Nibby in the house. Hey,
Yeah.
Bernita.
Jayati. Hey, Jayati.
Elena.
Lisa Robin. Hello, Lisa. And Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer. Long time no chat.
All right.
Victor Ortiz. Tim, my man.
Charles. Long time no see, Charles.
Always good to have Tim in the house.
All right, let's see who else we got going on here. Said, oh, my friend from
Bianca
Cahill.
and Bernita. You know, it's not an event until Bernita checks in.
Oh, absolutely. Tristan. Hello, Tristan. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Yeah, we're going to give it about till 2:04, and then we'll let Cecil
JT.
get us going. Hey, Rick Vaughn, my counterpart in SoCal. Swinnerton in the house. Cynthia. Hey, Cynthia. Kim Patton out of San Diego, Swinnerton family.
Oh, we got a good group here. Hey, Maria. Hey, Monica. How you doing? And I see Rick Vaughn. I always like to, oh, I love that name, Rick Vaughn. I always feel like it's like WWF wrestling. Rick Vaughn.
I think Timothy, part of our working group. Welcome.
Timothy, that's so formal. That's so formal. And I see
Hey,
Michaela
Mia.
and Mary. I feel like Romper Room, where she used to say, you know, like I see,
yeah.
Mary,
You're
Maria.
aging those of us who know what that means.
I know who know what Romper Room is.
And I don't appreciate it, Cecil.
It's like I'm going. This is like pre-Barney, right?
Yeah. and Captain Kangaroo was immediately following Nancy and Miss Romper Room. Sad. Those were the good old days, though.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but it was it's well over 100 here today, so I'm glad to be inside.
Where are you?
I'm in Northern California in East Bay.
Yeah, I'm in the East Bay, and it's hot, but it's not 100 where I am. That's why. Are you in Concord or something?
Well, you must be on the good side of the hill.
I'm in San Leandro.
Oh, see, I'm in Dublin. See,
You're in the heat side.
Yeah.
I'm going to step away for one quick second.
Well, that's good to know that. I always wondered how the other half lived.
Anyway. Hey, Jennifer, Meriwether and Williams, welcome. Kira, my partner from Nibby, thank you for joining us.
Todd Jackson from Intel. Hey, Todd, thanks for joining.
Okay.
And Bianca and Angelina, welcome.
Okay, call me though.
And Vanessa PGI.
Okay. All right,
I like how you got your company name in there. I got to figure out how to rename mine so I can get the company name in there, but my company name is too long, so I can't get it in there.
Mouthful, Cecil. I stumble every time I try to say your organization's name. You need to work on that.
You have to sing it. That's it's like a radio jingle. It's WRMSDC.
Okay, I'll remember that next time. I have a feeling if I sing it, it'll be the end of the conversation, though.
Okay. All right, Cecil. Well, let's go ahead and throw it to you, and let's get started.
All righty. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for attending the first installment of our wonderful Construction Summer Series. For those of you who may not know, what WRMS SDC, oh, see, look, Ingrid has me stumbling over our own name now. For those of you who don't know about the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council, we've been in the Bay Area since 1977, and we serve Northern California, Nevada, and Hawaii. Of course, our purpose is to create intergenerational wealth and jobs in communities of color. And we do that by connecting entrepreneurs with large buying organizations, whether that be public or corporate, to be inclusive, to make sure that communities of color are participating in this great economy we had. You might want to wonder, like, what are we doing here? Well, about 3 years ago, we started having rumblings about, hey, you know, you guys do a lot for minority business owners, but the construction industry is special, and we have different needs and different ways that we connect with as subcontractors and with general contractors. And can't you do something for us? So after a lot of thought, we had our first ever construction only event last October, and it was so successful that out of that was formed the WRMSDC Construction Working Group, which is made up of a conglomerate of corporate representatives as well as minority business representatives to focus specifically year-round on construction-related issues and opportunities. And so we'd like to thank our steering committee here today. We have many of those members, Mick from Swinerton, Elena from Turner Construction, of course, Lisa from Comcast, Joanna from Herrero, and He-Man from SB James, and Lily, of course. I'm not sure if Lily's on with us, but Lily from PG&E, all coming together as a steering committee to figure out how do we serve the construction community better. And that's where we came up with our summer series, which is going to be a series of online events, just like the one we're having today. And those will lead us up to the second year of our construction symposium, which will be in October. But today we'll be focusing on capacity building. We've all heard that so often, but what does it mean and how do we get there? We have a great group who's going to help us connect and learn. So enough from me, but thank you for attending. We think we have a great afternoon installed for you. And now I'm going to hand it over to our gracious host from Swinerton in partnership with Herrera Builders. I'm going to hand it over to our friend Mick Penn. Mick, take it away.
Thank you, Cecil. And I want to thank all the attendees. We had 130 RSVPs, and so that was really a great outreach effort. And so I want to acknowledge some of the folks that helped us with the outreach. Paul Pendergrass, Meriwether and Williams, Skanska, my Swinerton SoCal group, Sina from WRMS DC, I think I got it right. And everyone else out there that helped to get the word out. The genesis of today's panel really came from our first working group meeting, and probably the most stimulating conversation that we had during that working group meeting was the topic of capacity building. And we really wanted to, and in that working group, we had corporate partners, you know, GCs, clients, but we really had some voices that were missing. And so today, what we wanted to do is to break down the silos that we typically operate in and really have a dialogue with MBEs, with corporate partners, with government partners. And we're really excited about bringing this group together. So a little housekeeping. You see the Q&A. We will be doing the Q&A at the end of the panel. We'll be answering the questions then. What we'd like you to do is, if there's a specific question, if you want to direct it towards Ingrid, if you want to direct it towards Boris, please do. That'll allow us to be able to move through the question and answering pretty quickly. If you want it for the whole group, just make sure that you direct your questioning. And then the best way to view this event is going to be in the speaker view. So I have mine in speaker view, and so you'll have the folks across the top panel, and that'll allow individuals as they're speaking to, you know, go ahead and be front and center with you. And so finally, before we introduce the panels, we did set out with a couple of goals, and really front and center is we want you to be able to take some ideas, some what we're calling a roadmap to assisting MBEs with growing their capacity. So part of my job introducing the panel is also to log these roadmap pieces. So we'll be sharing some of those at the end of the event, and then we'll be sending out a blast to everyone that's participated or that RSVP'd for this, so that you could get those roadmaps or those pieces to assist MBEs with capacity building. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go across the panel and have them introduce themselves. And I'd go ahead and introduce yourself, Carl.
Hi, my name is Carl Gordon, owner of Gordon Plastering, specialize in lath plaster, fireproofing. Been in the business for 21 years. Company's been operating for 4 years, union signatory.
Okay, thank you, Carl. And so next on the list, Marco. And you may be muted, Marco. Oh, Marco's reconnecting. While Marco's reconnecting, we'll go ahead and move on. And Boris, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. This is Boris Shlostuola, project exec, Panko Builders. And Panko has been operating in NorCal and SoCal as a general contractor, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay, thank you, Boris. And one of the real thought leaders on this topic, really excited to have her here today, Ingrid. Would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Ingrid Merriweather, Merriweather and Williams Insurance Services. We're a licensed commercial property casualty brokerage firm, but more known for the programs that we administer for public agencies in Northern and Southern California to help ensure more minority and small contractor participation in public works. And thank you for including me.
Okay, thank you for being here today, Ingrid. And so we got Marco back on. Marco, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Marco Manriquez, President CEO of Marcon Builders. We're a general contractor out of Oakland, California. We start off as a subcontractor, and we do both. It's what keeps us busy.
Okay, thank you, Marco. And then last but definitely not least, Maceo.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Maceo Wiggins. I'm the Director of the Office of Civil Rights for the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit District, or MART, as we're known in the Bay Area.
Okay, thank you, Maceo. And so with that, I'm going to go throw it to our moderators for today's panel, Joanna Leva of Herrero Builders and Cassandra Manansala from Skanska.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cassandra Manansala, and I'm the Regional Vendor Diversity Manager for Skanska out here in California. And Joanna?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanna Leva, and I work for Herrero Builders. I'm the Diversity Program Manager there. So I hope everyone's doing well today. I think without further ado, let's just begin with our panel. So with our panel discussion, sorry. This first question actually goes out to all of our panelists. What is your definition of capacity building, and why is capacity building important? Maceo, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Joanna. So I'm going to make the distinction between all the different terms of capacity building first: capacity development, business development. I'm going to lump them all together and say that it's important, and our definition of it really is the process by which an entity, a person, an organization acquires or expands upon their skills, talents, and abilities to grow their business and their business portfolio. That's important here at BART because one of the big challenges that a lot of our small businesses, minority, women-owned businesses have is, I'll call it, getting over that hump, getting over the peak, and continuing to move from being a subcontractor to being a general or to being a prime contractor. And the way you get there in general is through capacity development, capacity building, by acquiring new skills, buffing up your skills in certain key areas for your clients. And that is what facilitates you being able to really go after larger and larger projects and win larger and larger project work. So that's my definition of capacity building.
Thank you. Baris?
Building on Maceo, what he said, I think it's very important to recognize the journey of the company or the entity in its growth. and looking at the barriers for their next step and how can we collectively remove the barriers. I think that is fundamental when we are working with our LBEs or minor, businesses and or minority businesses. So it's very important to have the mindset and intention that we are removing the barriers for their growth and capacity building.
Thank you, Barish. Ingrid?
Yes, thank you. So really just adding on to what's been said, I'm sure some of this is going to be a bit repetitive, but I think I would define capacity building as increasing the size and scope of work you can successfully complete at a profit while building a sound internal infrastructure for your business. And it's important for the most obvious growth of the business, but that's also the legacy of the business and your ability to build generational wealth.
Thank you, Ingrid. Marco?
Excellent. To me, capacity building is, well, every firm specializes in a few areas of construction. Potentially, the larger you are, the more areas you specialize in, providing better value to your clients. Marcon specializes in medical, clean rooms, educational, seismic renovations, and tenant improvement projects. I mean, knowing your skills people possess will determine the overall capacity that you will reach. You're only as capable as the people you can surround yourself with. I mean, if you don't know you're capable of achieving, it makes it difficult to plan and execute within the specialized areas of construction you're identified in which you define your company. So it's, yeah, it's a little bit of capacity building from me.
Thank you, Marco. Lastly, Carl?
Capacity building is access to capital, bonding, and having a workforce to be able to complete the project. There's several companies that are small business, and they either fall into any one of those categories for them to not be able to actually bid on the project to perform work. So that's my objection for that.
Awesome. And we'll jump into partnering, and this is for Barish with PanCal. How do you partner up with MBEs so it's a win-win outcome for both parties?
No, it's a wonderful question, and it's also a wonderful statement. We always looking for win-win partnerships, and we always look at any partnership we're building with the subs or engineers, owner, client. What is the win-win solution? But I think what makes this conversation more relevant to this panel is when we are engaging an LBE or micro business, it becomes a deeper conversation because we need to build a relationship in a more meaningful and deeper sense. And we need to be asking questions to both of us for the successful partnership. How are we going to operate? What does it mean to get through a pre-qualification? What does it mean to understand the cash flow payment cycles of the LBE? So I think it's significant that we pause and have those conversations early on with our partners, so it's set up for a win-win outcome. So then they keep building up, they keep increasing their capacity.
Awesome, thank you. Joanna, you're on mute.
Thank you. So from today's registration, you guys all had some questions to answer, and something that we were able to identify is that the largest challenge for MBEs to build capacity is access to capital. Marco, would you agree? And if you agree, what has worked in your opinion to correct this?
I would definitely have to agree. Access to capital has been one of the largest challenges for Marcon builders. What worked for us initially to start Marcon were three main things. One, I had to cash out my retirement, part of it, establish a line of credit, established business credit cards and vendor accounts. Additionally, during the first couple of years, we made sure that project billings were done in a timely manner and billed right away, and followed up with the client immediately after like 30 days just to make sure that there was no delays, especially on our part. We had to suffer through a few jobs and not pay ourselves so we could build equity into the company. We had to make sacrifice. We had to make sacrifice during the office and in the field. We got very little sleep at times, but persevered through it. We started to see our work paying off in gains on our projects, and this fueled us to keep on going, eventually to take on more and more slowly to where we are now. A lot of companies will and have to go through the same struggle. I mean, it's definitely not an easy one, but you got to know what you're going for. So that's a little bit of my take on it.
Carl, would you also like to follow up for this question?
Yeah, I totally agree. Access to capital is a very hard. It's a very hard thing to get as a business growing. You have to be in business and sustainable for a certain amount of time. But I've been able to sustain by just having joint check agreements with general contractors and just stating to have maybe a 2-week payment or a 3-week payment every 3 weeks on the SOV. So that's the only way we could kind of like float the projects and stay running and operating. So that's just been the best way for us to stay afloat without getting that access to capital.
Awesome. So on the topic of access to capital, I'm going to turn this question to Ingrid. Are there any sponsored programs that address the issue of small contractors having access to funds to finance their work while awaiting progress payment?
Yeah, so thank you. A couple things I would mention, and Carl actually mentioned one in terms of what you might negotiate with the prime contractor up front, recognizing that you're going to have financial obligations to cover the initial scopes of work before you're going to start receiving progress payments. So joint checks is one strategy that sometimes primes are willing to do to get you paid faster. The other thing that you might be able to is negotiate mobilization funds as part of your contract terms. So if you have a good relationship with the prime, this also reinforces the importance of building those relationships because they're sometimes in a position to support you this way. I will say that we actually are administering a pilot program in San Francisco that was funded by the city and county of San Francisco, who recognized that it's really an enormous burden asking for small contractors to essentially finance their construction. Having to cover project-related costs, the purchase of materials, and then what is at minimum a 60-day time delay before they receive progress payment for what they've already expended. So in recognizing that that was really an unfair burden, especially when they're not even paying interest on those funds, they couldn't even get that deal from a bank, San Francisco felt it was necessary to do something about it. So they started a program called CAP, Contractor Accelerated Payment Program. And it essentially uses the contract itself as collateral, which enables the contractor to access funds from an independent source that the city has funded to cover contract-related expenses, payroll, material supplies, et cetera, as needed for the project. In advance and as needed. And then the progress payments are then used as collateral to repay the funds that have been advanced. So there's a lot more detail to how all of that works, but it's been a well-working solution so far. We're hoping to build and expand on this, but I'm one who believes that going back to the same traditional financial institution marketplace in hopes that they're going to start funding minority and small contractors is kind of a fool's errand. I don't see that happening. So advocating for some of these other strategies and approaches could benefit more small contractors.
Awesome. Thanks, Ingrid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears just a tiny bit. Barish, this question is for you. What is a common mistake you see MBs make as they grow their business? And as they grow their business, that can easily be remedied?
Good question. And I almost want to go back to Ingrid's point about how can we better understand our financial relationship? How can we better build that process as we are contracting and as we're executing the work? So what Ingrid laid out was a very creative way of approaching and bridging the gap and, really making a better smooth run. We actually partner up with Ingrid and her team. And, we had many good learnings. We're actually taking that program into another project that we are rolling out. But that, I would say, is one of the biggest barriers we need to be working collectively. And it's going to take a village. It's not going to be just the GC. It's going to be the banking and the agencies working together. But once we do that, I have fairly high level of confidence that we're going to do fine in the field. I think we all set up to do fine work in the field and the skilled workforce. So the better we can improve our relationship on the finance side, the better we can understand how we are procuring material. Once the material and the labor come to site, I think we'll be okay for the most part. So again, I want to stress and underline the Ingrid's point about how we are setting up the job financially and the payment cycles.
Thank you, Baruch. Macy, is there anything you'd like to add here?
Yes. So I would say, I know the question is focused on minority business enterprises, but I would say I see a common mistake with all small businesses. And the first one I would say, and I'm sure everyone here can emphasize this, is not just to focus only on the work. So kind of leapfrogging off Boris's point, is that in public works especially, there's a lot of documentation requirements, a lot of submittal requirements, a lot of safety requirements. And as you're growing your business, focus in on learning those things, because that is half of the battle, is once you've done the work, getting your invoice, the work documented, the invoice submitted, getting it in for processing so you can get payment, pay your suppliers, pay your people. And also to that end, take advantage of all the services that the clients, the owners have to offer in that area. So here at BART, right, we have a small business support services program for construction, which is very focused not on this, I'll call it the soft skills, the submittals, the documentation, because the contractors know their business. They know how to lay concrete, they know how to pull conduit, they know how to hang drywall. I'm going to let the contractors focus on their core competency, and I'm going to provide support where I can. And that's in these other areas that are a little ancillary to the execution of the work, but are also really critical to moving the contract and the project forward to successful execution. So from my perspective, I want every small business to come to me and take advantage of the training, the assistance, the guidance we have to offer, because it's really there to help build that capacity and grow that firm's knowledge, abilities, and skill set.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to turn it over to Carl as we're kind of talking about training and skill sets. So I know, Carl, you have taken many capacity building trainings. So what is your opinion of general contractor or owner-driven contractor training programs? What works, and most importantly, what does not work?
So I will take advantage of the programs that they do have for LCP Tracker, Elations as well, because those are the training that you need to get paid when it comes to public works projects. In terms of other trainings with mentoring contractors like the Turner School, the Clark School, it's been very, very good information for small business. It builds relationship. It shows into detail what the general contractor is looking for. So the small business is very familiar on how to operate that back office, which gets you paid. Because 9 times out of 10, the work is easy to do, but it's when it comes to the hurdles is when it comes to getting paid. So that's the biggest thing. So Clark School, Turner School, and I think if more general contractors have schools for small business, it'll be a lot helpful, and it also builds that relationship for companies to be able to grow.
Awesome. That is great feedback. So on that same topic, we'll start with you, Carl, then I'll open it up to the rest of the panel. Are there any training or skills that you would recommend MBEs make before trying to expand their business or grow their workforce?
Well, one thing is that you have to make sure that you do create a great system within your company to know before you know you're able to grow. So a system within your workforce in the field, back office, and also how much capital you do have in terms of bonding capacity and workforce. And that's when you pretty much kind of got it. Also the relationship that you do have with the general contractors too, because that also implements a system where everyone knows each other, the relationship is good, and you just kind of pretty much flow through the hurdles of projects, because every project is not gonna just flow through just easily. There's always a problem in construction. But if you're able to tackle it and solve it with your team, you're good.
Awesome. And I'll kind of go down the list here with the panelists so we're not speaking over each other. We'll start with Maceo.
Thank you. So what I would say is I wouldn't wait for training or skills before you start the process of growing your workforce or growing your business. What I would say is make sure you're getting them. I believe in just-in-time delivery. So make sure you're getting them when you need them. And so I like to approach like our support services program. When you come into our program, it's kind of like an a la carte menu. Not everybody needs to understand the organization safety training. And so let's go through and let's give a customized curriculum to the small businesses as they're coming through the process of trying to grow their skills and expand their workforce. And let's tailor that to what they need. And so what I would say is for BART, the number one thing that I would say that I would echo Carl's sentiment. Learn elation systems, the labor compliance systems, learn the payment compliance systems, help facilitate the processing of the invoice through our agency quicker by making sure we're able to run those submittals and move those submittals through. But from my perspective, I think it's let's build a customized plan for each business, and then let's make it possible for that business to get that support, not in the classroom, but also on demand. So on 4 o'clock on a Friday, when you're being asked to submit your certified payroll, who in my organization can you pick up the phone and call that will answer the phone and be able to connect you with a subject matter expert that can help facilitate that, I'll call it that emergency training or that just-in-time need. So I really think that is the approach I recommend for everybody coming to do business with BART, simply because we spend a lot of time putting these resources in place, and we want our business community that works with us to take advantage of them and leverage it to their advantage and growing their own business.
Awesome. So great to know. Common theme there is LCP tracking and understanding how to get paid. So with that, Barish, how can you add on to that?
I think one thing I want to bring up to the group and the panel is another model we find very valuable and producing the right results in the right setup is this mentor-protege programs. Depending on the complexity of the project, depending on the scale and the size, I think there is great value for the LBEs and the small businesses look for those partnerships where they can go in front of the GC or the client as a team. Again, it depends on the job, depending on the scale. But I think there is a great opportunity for them to grow faster and safer and find that complementary skill set organizationally and technically. Again, that's one area that I would strongly recommend the folks to look at. We're currently implementing that in one of our jobs where we're heavy on that model. Again, that's another good idea.
Awesome. And then I'll turn that over to Ingrid. The same question.
Sure. I'll just take a little different tact and focus on maybe another area, and that's around the financial performance. And the first thing that's critically important for a small contractor to know inside and out is what is their profit model. Even though it's all construction, not all contractors share the same profit model. So you need to invest the time in understanding what is your profit model? What way do you operate that generates the maximum return on your business effort? So, and that can be adjusted once you understand what it is. how do you maximize it? So that's key, is to understand your profit model. And these are all areas that we in particular offer both one-on-one as well as group training around. So knowing your profit model, then that's important for bidding and estimating, because your profit model also is going to tell you what your operation costs are. You can't bid and estimate a job well if you really don't have a very thorough understanding of what your cost to operate business is, and then how do you apply that to specific projects, specific scopes of work. So these are kind of the critical orders: understanding your profit model, incorporating that in how you bid and estimate work, and then the third leg of that is understanding how to do cash flow analysis specific to a particular project. When you're bidding and estimating a project, you need to have a sense of, and not just a sense, you need to know really to the penny, what are the financial demands going to be on you? And when you align those with the flow of the project and your scope of work, what are going to be the peaks and valleys of those financial commitments? Because it's not wise to go into a project excited about having secured it, or they're selecting you and that it's bigger than anything you've ever done, because that can also be what kills you. Because when you don't know what to anticipate, that in 2 months, for example, you're going to reach a peak in the project scope that's going to require you to have additional financial resources that you may not have yet generated from profit and overhead you've been able to retain to that point thus far, you're going to find yourself in a challenging situation of needing to fund work that you don't have the cash flow to support. So these are kind of three critical intersections, if you will, of understanding the financial position of your company and applying that to how you bid work and how you plan for the financing of that work. And again, it's areas of training that we, and I think some others, offer to small minority contractors.
For sure, understanding project cash flows and the financial stability of your company before getting into a project is big. Marco, as a contractor, same question.
Yeah, so I agree with Ms. Ingrid here. Knowing your costs are like everything. You know, I like to look at it as 51% business, 49% construction. You know, educating, you know, yourself in QuickBooks. You know, there's Saturday classes for understanding QuickBooks, accounting softwares. You know, reaching out to the underwriters and knowing what they're looking for, reaching out to the bankers. What do you guys like to see? I mean, there's kind of rule of thumbs that, you know, there's formulas that are out there that will tell you if something makes sense or not. You know, educating yourself on those formulas. You know, being able to forecast your cost is tremendous. You know, estimate, once you submit that estimate, yes, cover yourself on submittals and everything else that goes to it. COVID training, you know, all the safety stuff, everything that all adds up. It may seem like your bid has now gone up, you know, another 15% because of all that. But at the end of the day, if you don't cover yourself, you will end up having to do the work. I don't want to say for free or voluntarily, but there's a signed contract. So CYA, you know, find out more about the financial part, because it's what keeps us in business.
Right. Definitely. And with that, Joanna, you want to go on to the next question? Oh, you're on mute.
You know, sorry guys. This next question is actually for Ingrid. Ingrid, how can minority and other small contractors best advocate for policies, practices, and programs which are conducive for equitable inclusion, particularly on funded projects, publicly funded projects?
Great, yeah. So, you know, we have been at our work for 23 years now, where we have been administering programs on behalf of public agencies that are trying to seek greater inclusion of minority and small contractors who have a real commitment for doing so, but commitment only goes so far. And so we've had the opportunity to somewhat be on the other side of the table with the public agencies who are grappling with how to create a more conducive environment. And we try to push for policies that we know will do just that, create a better environment for small firms to be able to compete. But we can't always carry that message. And we need the voices of the small contractor community to advocate for what's going to create a better atmosphere, a better contracting atmosphere for themselves. And so, you know, I think that an approach is, if you are a minority and small contractor, that in particular in the public sector where advocacy, you have access to folks who are the decision makers vis-a-vis elected officials. So this is where political strategy is important. But through the business organizations that you're members of, assuming that they advocate for their membership and assuming those are small business organizations, you can put an initiative together to approach various public agencies to advocate for specific contracting practices, specific policies, and specific programs that will create a more conducive environment to you. And I will tell you that politically speaking, you have a very high probability of being successful. And I say that because in the 2.5 decades that we've been at this, every time we've had to go before an elected body, a board of supervisors, a city council, whatever the case may be, the fact that we were there to implement a program to help minority and small contractors, we got 100% yes votes from every member of every board and every council over a 23-year time period. Because politically, they understand that they have to be on the side of small business. And but what happens is that advocacy isn't strong enough coming from the contractor community itself. There's so much more that can be done. And I would also pose that now is an ideal time for advocacy. The George Floyd unfortunate murder opened up a brand new dialogue that's happening. I'm sure all of you are aware of it, that's happening all across the country, including large institutions, prime contractors, public agencies, who recognize that this is a moment they need to step up and do more. So despite COVID and the other crises that are going on right now, we're hearing from quite a few agencies that are trying to figure out how do they create stronger equity in contracting. And I'll just mention a couple of more points here. What's important when you advocate is that you advocate for the specific solutions that you've done the research to know they're effective. You can't just advocate and complain about the problem and the systemic barriers. You have to identify those, but you also have to come with the specific solutions that you can demonstrate or point out as having a track record of being successful. And you have to do that with one voice. And I will say, it doesn't take 100 people. 10, 15 contractors who are very strategic, who have some political acuity, can be very impactful in getting more equitable contracting practices adopted by public agencies. We've seen it happen over and over again. So that's my my soapbox speech about the importance of advocacy, and that is the best way to use the membership of some of the organizations that you're involved in, is to advocate for specific change in contracting practices.
Thank you, Ingrid.
All right, just a quick reminder, everyone, we do have the Q&A box down below, so feed your questions in there and we'll try to hit them at the end. Okay, so this next question is for Macy, and I'm really interested in this answer because we face this problem all the time as a builder. So MBEs looking to expand their businesses are often faced with certified manufacturer installer requirements or project specs that favor companies with greater buying power. Are there ways to require manufacturers to include and train MBEs and establish project specifications that create an even playing field?
Yeah, so as an owner or as a client, Bart, I think this is a challenge, and we're kind of cognizant, or we are cognizant of that. One of the things I would point to is we have a standard, we call it document called the BART Facility Standards, and if you go on our website, you can see the evolution of the standards over time, and the organization takes great steps to ensure that we're asking for not a specific kind of product that may have that kind of a restriction on it, but giving us a detailed specification around it that a client or an individual can go out and purchase the items for within that framework. So the best example I can think of is, instead of saying buy a microwave from brand X to put in the break room for our staff, we'll say the microwave must be within these size dimensions and this much wattage, and be certified by a nationally recognized underwriter laboratory. All right, we don't specify underwriter labs or where they have to get certified, so we're trying to give as much flexibility to the bidders in how they go out and price the items they bring to us. We also take care to avoid requiring a customized product or a specific product unless there's actually a need for it. We try to do that kind of work through contracts under our procurement rules that are single source or sole sourced, so that we're not asking a small business or another firm to go out and compete in an area where they can't because they're not a certain manufacturer's representative, et cetera, et cetera. But we do actively work with our folks in OCR who develop our specs and are constantly working to remove any barriers like this from the opportunity for small businesses and other businesses to come in and compete on these contracts through controlling our specs and having a collaborative approach in how we design the standards and the specs we build our system to.
Awesome. Thanks, Maceo. That definitely creates a more even playing field.
So I think for the sake of time, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. Cassandra, can we jump to question 11, please?
Yeah, definitely. So, this is for Carl and Marco, and we'll start with you, Carl. Have there been setbacks you would like to share as you've grown your business, and how have you dealt with them? So kind of the lessons learned here.
Okay, setbacks. There's been a few setbacks, and a lot of times the setbacks has been more likely just knowing to put your documents in when it's time for payment. And that's something that you learn really fast. That's been pretty much the setback. Of course, access to capital for you to be able to grow as a business. That's always a setback as well, because a lot of times you do the work, the money gets pumped out for labor, material, and everything else, but it doesn't come in as fast. And that's pretty much the setback for companies to be able to grow.
Awesome, thanks. And Marco, same question.
Yes, there have been 3 big setbacks. One of them is procuring work. The other is getting bonding for larger projects, and as well as increasing the line of credit. Having the right estimates and learning how to do the competitive bidding process takes time and can be costly. Sometimes it's a gamble, but that's when some days we have to work long hours and weekends. Working through small business certification programs, local chamber of commerce, networking events within the community, and putting ourselves out there all helped us get work here and there. We've asked our bonding agent how to increase our limit, and he said to get a higher line of credit and have good financials that were approved by a CPA. They want to see money in the bank, positive and consistent cash flow, or provide collateral. It's tough to get a large bond before you have a track record and cash flow. We had to shop around bond companies that would take the chance and partner with us to grow. It's a pain in the butt, to tell you the truth. It was really challenging. The main thing to increase the line of credit was to show backlog of projects and that current projects were profitable. Again, this required a CPA to assist in providing adequate financials to the bank. We've hired consultants along the way to help us with these aspects. I mean, we've invested money in people that have been through this already, and it's an investment that's it's paying off.
Thanks, Marco. That's some great feedback on your experience.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'd like to thank all of our panelists here today. I'm going to kick this off to McQuell, who's going to lead our question and answers.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. So we had a handful of questions come in. Vanessa, you asked if we would provide the contact information for all of the panelists. Yes, we will. We'll also send out what we're going to call the roadmap markers that I'll get to here in a little bit. From Reva Murphy. And Reba is asking, would any of the panelists be willing to take on a mentor role to her woman-owned business? She's been in business for 20 years. I know Reba, she's a great person. We will need help of a larger GC to give the opportunity to show how good we are. So Reba, I can go back and talk to my folks, and I'll talk to Barish in our friends. That's my friend. We'll talk offline. Okay, so that's two. And so a couple of opening ones. Marco, you mentioned QuickBook classes, Saturdays. Where are the classes held?
You can find them at adult schools. I mean, now everything's online, but like Chabot College, junior colleges, adult schools, yeah, they're out there. They're not that expensive either. I mean, I took 2 of them before. Yeah, just your city adult schools and community colleges. They're available.
Okay, thank you. To Barish and Maceo, how would you counsel newly created businesses to get work under their belt? And that's from Bernita Reagan.
I guess I'll go first. So I would say at BART, there's 2 ways I would advise doing that. If I'm going to say you're a new business, you're coming into the public works sector, I would say 1, participate in our matchmaking opportunities. And so that's a little bit, we do one-on-one meetings. So when we do matchmaking, we'll put the business, the small business, in the room with the project manager, the owner, the lead decision maker for the project, for you to talk about business opportunities. And in particular, if you're a small business, maybe some work on a line item that you could ask them to peel off for you. And then the second part of that is I cannot stress this enough. Before you go to talk to, as a subcontractor, to a general contractor about work, get the plans and specs for the project you're working on, review them, and identify an area that you would like to work on. And go to that discussion prepared to talk about the preliminary takeoffs you've made and the area you think that you'd like to work in, what you think the value of that area is in, so that you're having a discussion about the actual work and not having what I call a business card meeting where you're handing business cards to each other and talking about when we can connect again, because the reality of the industry and how quickly the pace is there may not be an opportunity for that follow-up before it's bid day. And so going into that meeting ready to discuss with that contractor how they like to take their bids, how they run their shop on bid day, what areas they can carve out, and where you can find some work for your business in that one meeting is really, really important. I've seen a lot of firms come into our organization and have a lot of success starting out with getting some work, and then building upon that. I did a partial electrical on this station to now I'm bidding the full electrical with my general contractor on that job because we've worked together before and we've built some rapport, and you continue to roll that rapport building process over and over again as you work with more and more generals.
Okay.
Great point. I would add that we are very much a relational contracting business. We are not a transactional business. It doesn't mean that we don't have contracts. It doesn't mean that we don't have pre-quals. We do. But it's very, very important that we start with the relational and our values. Are they compatible? Are we clicking? Are we looking at the world and the operation and the construction the same way? And if we can check the box, I think we can start shifting more into the transactional and the contracting. And we have a very robust, and like other GCs, a pre-qualification process. And as most pre-qualification process, we would need to get creative. And we're open to that. But it's very important that we have that, the coffee or the virtual coffee now, and then check the boxes, feeling good about it, and then start moving down the line and looking at, again, opening up our strengths and weaknesses and try to be the right matchmaking for the right opportunity. So go slow to go fast.
Go slow to go fast. That's one of our old little sayings. So thank you, my friend. Okay, a couple of questions came in. The BART matchmaking, you'll have Macio's contact when you come out. Jesus, we'll get that to you. Kim, you asked the question about the small firms addressing their marketing. I'm going to get them to answer that question on their own, but marketing is huge. I wish we had time to talk about that. I want to go ahead and wrap up the question and answer session. First of all, I want to thank all the wonderful attendees. I see this stellar list and, you know, some great people that I know on there. I would have loved to do this, you know, live. But maybe one time, you know, this is just the beginning of this conversation. So, you know, once we get through this, everybody stay safe, stay strong, and we'll be able to do this live. So a couple of markers. I'm only going to pick one for the GC, one for the MBEs, and one for the clients and owners. For the GCs, Carl, we heard you develop a small minority business training program. It's a great relationship builder. So Rick Vaughn, Kim Patton, we got work to do. For the MBEs, harden the back office. Take advantage of the all that the different clients have to offer with regards to support. So thank you for that, Maceo. And then for the client owners, create an environment for MBEs to compete. So be thinking about the environment. So thank you for that, Ingrid. So we're going to get all these typed up, get this information out to you. So give us about a week. Want to thank you all. With that, I want to turn it over to Cecil to talk about the upcoming events.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Mick. Thank you, our wonderful panelists. Let's hear it for them again. Thank you very much for being on our panel today. Hopefully you're seeing our slide there with the upcoming events that are a part of our summer series on September 2nd. You see financial resilience with PG&E. We'll be co-hosting that. Make sure you attend that. It's not just the regular access to capital, but really getting down into the weeds. And you can also make sure registration is open. Don't forget to participate in that. September 10th, mark your calendar for Turner and SV James. Successful marketing. That was a question from today. How do we market our companies? How do we get those opportunities? That's an important feature. And then, of course, working with primes. That's always the big deal, right? How do you start to get the experience that you need so that you can be a prime or a direct supplier one day? That's on September 17th. We want to thank Swinnerton. We want to thank Herrera Builders. We want to thank all of our panelists for being here. I mean, it was such a great panel. Thank you very much. And we hope that you found this valuable. WRMS DC is here to serve you and to serve the minority business community. And this is just the beginning of a great summer series and our commitment to the construction industry. Back to you, Mick.
Okay. And with that, you know, back to your days. Once again, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules, and we'll get all this information out to you shortly. So have a wonderful evening, stay safe, and talk to you soon.